Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Well, hello, Bree. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Sure.
I'd like to start off by asking, how do you describe yourself and what is it that you do?
Okay, so I guess I describe myself as a music career coach. I've kind of struggled with that, like, is it music business coach? But I feel like what I do is encompassing the whole career as far as not just the business stuff, which is important, and the marketing and the social media and all that, but also the mindset and the like the inner work and the goal setting and all that stuff that's required to have a real career in music. So I'm a music career coach, and I work with artists online to help them grow their music career. I also run a radio station and podcast that plays music by female independent artists, and I am a mom.
Wow, that's definitely a very full plate.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. I'm curious, were there any experiences early on in your life that maybe planted a seed for you to get into a music career?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, in high school, I got really involved in choir, and it was basically my whole world other than academics. And so, I was in pretty much everything I could be in and every show that I could be in and all that. And when I went to college, same thing. Like, I was a vocal major, and I performed with a touring ensemble for the school that I went to. And we went out like almost every weekend and performed all around California and some of the other Western states. And one major experience was recording in a real professional recording studio, in downtown Santa Barbara, and, walking in there, and there's like albums by Kenny Loggins and the Beach Boys on the wall. And I'm like, whoa, like, this is real.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That sounds exciting.
Yeah. I mean, for a 20-year-old, definitely exciting.
Oh, yeah. Would you then walk me through your journey from what you studied and worked in undergrad then to your early career in the corporate world?
Sure. So I was a music major, but I was also a business major because I got practical. Like, I thought, I really don't know how I'm going to make a career in music when I leave school. And it was a smart idea because when I left school, I really, as I thought, had no clue. Like, I was given no direction of, okay, now that you're a music major graduate, like, go out and do this or do this to find a job. So, I felt like I was just like sent out on my way, like, see ya, thanks for the degree, and no clue what to do. So, and moving to a totally new town, didn't have any connections to get started in any kind of music stuff. So, luckily, I had discovered that I really enjoyed accounting and management. So I got a degree in business, and I went out and got my first job and, did kind of just like the basic accounting job for a few years. And then I landed a job as director of finance at the local opera company. And we were, one of the top 15 companies in the country. So that was a really fun experience, working in that artistic world, but kind of in the background, but getting to go and sit in the front row on opening night and go to all the fancy parties and all that stuff and just be kind of around that artistic world.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I've worked at a few different opera houses on the design side as assistants, and opera. I absolutely love opera, and one of the most, I think the greatest benefit of especially being on the artistic side is especially during rehearsals and during the dress rehearsals where there's almost nobody in the audience, and it's like this entire opera is just being performed for you.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, we had an office, we had a big building where on the other side of the building were our rehearsal spaces. Mm-hmm. And we could just walk over there, during lunch and, check out what they're doing for rehearsal and stuff, which was really fun.
Yeah. Is there a particular reason why you chose to work in opera? Was it just there was, is it because it was a music venue and you were looking on the business side of it? Was it just, fortuitous that there was an opening?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely that. And it was that I did do opera in college. I was in Marriage of Figaro a couple of times. And, I trained as a classical vocalist. I didn't want to do that as my music career, but I had experience and I did have an enjoyment for it. And it was, the opening. I mean, there's not a lot of openings that come out in the newspaper in relation to like artistic stuff. So I was jumping on that.
Right. So how long did you work at the opera company before you decided to take a break?
And so I worked there for 5 years as the director of finance. And then when I left, I actually managed to still work there part-time from home for another 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I had a baby and there's just a lot going on in my life, and I had an opportunity to kind of like move out of the area and de-stress my life a little bit, having a newborn and being the director of finance at an opera company that was struggling because it was after the 9/11 and the .com crash and all that stuff, and during the .com boom, we had all kinds of money, and then suddenly, we had no money, but we'd already gotten involved in all these big projects that we still had to finish. And so it was very stressful. And, when I went to first work there, I would get up in the night and call the bank on the phone and make sure, and before the internet was big with banking, and call and like see if we had enough money for payroll, and that was stressful. Oh, yeah. So I was ready to take a break from that stress, but luckily I still got to work there part-time while I was raising my daughter and then kind of starting my music career there.
Oh, that's great. So what then made you decide to start your own recording music career?
Well, I had been wanting to do it. I had not given up on it while working at the opera. I had been doing stuff on the side constantly, searching for bands to be in, searching for people to perform with. So many, machinations I had gone through of possible music opportunities that had failed, So many times you find a band and you think it's going to be the right thing and then it really isn't. So I had tried that for so long, really not having a clue what I was doing, just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And after I left my job and I had a little more time to think about, how should I go about this music career? And that is really what led me to realizing that I needed to think about it as a business, and I needed to do it on my own and not try to, send out all of these, demos and things to get, decision makers or industry people on my side, or get a record label or a booking agent or anything. Like I could just start a business and go out and do it on my own. And so that's kind of how I got started in really finally making a career for myself.
Okay. And then at what point did you decide to launch the Women of Substance Radio and ultimately, I guess, create a radio station? I'm curious on how that process worked.
Well, so I had actually created the radio station back in 2000, I think, when online radio first came out on Live 365. And I was working full time at the opera, and I just wanted a way to listen to my own playlist at work. So okay. I started, I put up a bunch of independent female artists I discovered online, and and I actually called it Women of Substance back then. It was really for myself. But then because Live 365 is public, people started listening to it. And I was like, oh, okay, other people like my playlist. Cool. Mm-hmm. But then it kind of just like went into the background for a while. And then I kind of checked back in on it once I was not working at the opera. And I was like, oh, like my station's still here, but now they're charging people to have these stations. I thought, is there any way that I could make a business out of this so I could actually revive this and build it and stuff. And one reason I thought that is because when I was touring as an indie artist, I met so many other talented female artists, and I thought, why are these people not on the radio? Why are they not getting more airplay? So I decided to build it and figure out a way to, pay for it. And so that was kind of where it started. And I just built it slowly from there, kind of as a hobby thing while I was doing music and still working at the opera and, raising my baby and all that. And, recording my album and everything. So it was kind of in the background, but I was growing it slowly and it was catching on and people were really enjoying it. And then when social media got big, I put it out on there and people were, catching on and loving it and submitting music and everything. And so once I got to the point where I decided I didn't really want to tour anymore and wasn't working for the opera anymore, I decided, what, I'm going to really grow this into a real business. And that's when I started, really pumping my time and effort into it and turned it into a professional station with commercials and eventually a podcast that ended up becoming number one on New and Noteworthy for, 2 months or something and being winning the Podcaster's Paradise Award and stuff. So it was just like this gradual thing, a passion project of mine that eventually, when all the other things kind of fell to the wayside, grew into a business. Yeah,
that's great. And congratulations on winning the Podcaster's Paradise Award with your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
That's great. I'm really curious, when you were developing and building your radio station and then launching the podcast, you do have a background in business, but were there, so clearly because you mentioned Podcaster's Paradise, you joined up with them. But were there additional mentorship groups or mastermind groups or books and mentors that you were looking at or reading about to launch a radio station?
There was absolutely nothing that I did the radio station pretty much entirely on my own. When I switched it over to the podcast, I did join Podcaster's Paradise. And then when I, moved it more into the business side of creating my Female Musician Academy and all my other resources, that is when I really started looking at mentors. But I did along the way in my music career discover a group of female artists that was doing a lot of what I wanted to do. And it was before I'd really kind of figured things out. And that was a real catalyst for me, joining that group, learning from them what they were doing, having a place to ask questions and talk about frustrating things that happen, and, learning from people that were just a little bit ahead of me. So that was a huge thing for me in the beginning of my music career.
Oh, sure. So at what point then did you launch the Female Music Academy, and what kind of things do you cover in that?
So after I launched the Women of Substance podcast and I built up my list pretty well of all independent female artists, in 2015, in June, I launched the Academy. Before that, I had also launched my Female Entrepreneur Musician podcast, which was an interview show. And also, I did some solo episodes answering people's questions. And it was kind of a lead into the Academy, to let people know that I was working with female artists to help them build their business and not just promote their music. Now I wanted to help them, build up their career and their business. So that led into the Academy. I launched it to a very small group of founders that allowed me to, build it from scratch, which was great. And I've been, building it ever since over the last 2 years as a membership. And we cover, everything from just the basics of getting your website up, getting your social media platforms really working for you, how to interact with fans, engage, how to build your email list, and, market yourself in all different ways, how to book shows, how to create profitable house concerts, crowdfunding. We pretty much cover the whole gamut. And we also have group coaching calls where we all get on a Zoom call and they can ask questions and everybody can chime in and all that. And it's a really great like community